Alright guys, today I'm going to show you step by step on how to install vanity cabinets. Be sure to follow along. So one of the first things that I do whenever I am installing cabinets is I take a look at my plan and I mark out all my measurements to see if there's anything in the way. Basically mark out all my cabinets, which I've done down here for my filler, and then I marked for each cabinet where it starts and ends. Okay, just to basically find out if everything's good. Is plumbing in the right spot where it needs to be? Is the toilet right where it needs to be? Is there might be a window that we want to make sure that we're hitting right in the center of. So we're verifying that. Then the next thing that I do is I take a level or a laser. This time I had a level and basically found my high point of the floor. So the way that I did that is I measured up the height of the cabinet, plus in this case we're going to put the cabinets in before the tile. Tile is about a 1/2 inch. So typical cabinet height is 34.5, so I measured up 35 inches. And you can see I made several little marks here that were 35 inches from the floor. And then I found that my high point was on this end over here. So I leveled across, and then all these little marks show that was my high point. All these are a little bit lower. That will allow our tile to fit it on this side, and they'll be up a little bit, and we'll be able to trim that out on the bottom. So I also put a plumb line where we have a big pantry going right here. So that's really just to essentially just help us out to when we're throwing the cabinet in place, we'll go off of that line, but then before we screw it off, we'll use our level and we'll double check, make sure everything's good. Something like this, when you're installing 1, 2, we've got 3 cabinets here, it just helps to be able to put it in, shim it right up to your line, and go from there. It makes it a lot easier. All right, so now what I did next here is I basically mapped out my plumbing lines, positions on the back of the cabinet. So this is another reason why these control lines here are so helpful. So this is the cabinet we're going to start with. We do have a tall pantry cabinet going here, but we've decided to start with this one. So I've got my plumb line here for where this cabinet's going to sit, and then I've got the level line here where that's going to be. So that's where we're going to measure off of to get these locations. So I measured down for all of them, and then I measured from this side to each one, marked it out here, and then I took my tape, and on the back side of the cabinet I did the same thing and marked everything out from here, and then used a hole saw to drill my 3 holes here. Okay, then after I did that, got my stud finder, found my studs, found the center of them, mapped out a few of them, and then what I did is I did the same thing. I took my tape measure and I measured where my studs are going to be from this edge, and then I did the same thing, brought it to the back of the cabinet, measured over, I drilled a small hole through the other side, and then I've got my, if you look inside, I've already got my cabinet screw right in here, ready to go. So now all I have to do is get my shims ready, push this against the wall, and it'll be ready to screw in. So once I've got it against the wall, and I've got at least one corner right against my control lines, now I'm just lifting everything else with everything with shims, and I'm double checking and seeing how everything's looking, and I'm just adjusting as I go. I really want everything to be nice and plumb and level. It'll make the rest of the cabinets that much easier to set. All right, so we're ready to screw off now. So what I'm going to do is, you can see that this cabinet back here is a little bit of a gap back here. We're tight about at the top. So when I screw this in, I want to make sure that this bottom doesn't get sucked in. So I'm just going to stick that shim in there to hold that like that. I'm going to do the same on the other side. create that resistance, and then we're ready to screw in. Everything is nice and level and plumb, every corner, every direction. We're ready. You can really feel the hold when I'm drilling this in. And I know I've got a stud. It'll just start spinning if I missed. So the first cabinet is completely screwed off. It's all level, plumb, and everything. You really want to make sure that that first cabinet is as best as that it can be before you move on to the next one. The other thing that you can do, you can see this is like a 42-inch cabinet. But if you have smaller cabinets, you can always gang them together, which basically just means that you're screwing them together and kind of joining them, making them one big cabinet. But because this was a big cabinet, I didn't want to do that. So right now we're going to move on to the next cabinets. We've got another small one, and then we got another big one. This is going to be like a double, nice big vanity in this bathroom. So, okay, one thing you always want to check for when you get your cabinets is to see if they've got little plastic tabs on the bottom. You can see that these do right here. You don't want to try setting your cabinet with those. They'll raise your cabinet. They'll throw things right off. So we want to make sure we get those pulled off. So I left my shims for this cabinet kind of halfway so that they would work for this cabinet as well. So I put this cabinet in, I got my 1/2-inch blocks counting for tile, and now I'm just gonna shim on this side here, get this up where it needs to be. And I'm not gonna try to get this perfect quite yet. What I'm going to do is just try to get this nice and flat, because now I'm going to gang these together, which, like I said, just means we're just going to screw these boxes together so they're like one unit. All right, so when we're connecting these two cabinets together, we always want to use clamps to help hold the cabinets nice and tight right where we want them. So when we drill and screw, everything stays where it's supposed to. Now I'm going to start at the top. You always want to try to conceal your screws any way you can. Couple different screws you can use. We've got 2 3/4 boards on the end of each cabinet, so I want something that's not going to pierce through that. So 1 1/4 is perfect for this application. So you can either use like a regular construction screw and countersink the head, or you can use like a small cabinet screw. It kind of depends on where you have, what options you have for kind of hiding that screw. So if we wanted to do it on this side where we have the doors here, I always try to do it like right behind where this hinge is going to be. And I use that countersink one so that it sits flush, right? And that'll really hide those screws so you can't really see them. But on this, the other side, we have drawers. And the drawers you don't really see because you've got the sides of the drawers there. So we kind of have more options there, and then that we can use a cabinet screw too. We don't have to countersink. So I'm going to start at the top. What I'm doing is I'm not worrying about plumb, flush, anything, or I'm not worrying about plumb or level or anything. What I really want to do is get my top nice and flat, make sure my bottom's nice and flat too. Sometimes there's a variation in the cabinets, so I'm just checking that. So we're looking really good that way. And really most importantly is right where I know I want to screw. I want to get towards the top here. I want to make sure my drill can fit in here. But right where I'm going to put this screw, I want to make sure that spot is nice and flush. So it is right now. So I'm going to pre-drill this so that when I screw it, it doesn't shift around. And that's also why I have the clamp here. Another really important thing is when I do this, I really want to ensure that my bit is nice and straight and square and not at an angle at all. Because if I have this at an angle and I go to screw the screw, what it's going to do, it's going to want those cabinets to shift, and it's going to pull one out in front of the other. So you really want to make sure you're nice and straight and square. Okay, First one's in, you can see right there, nice and flush. All right, so now I'm gonna do my next one. I've loosened my clamp. I'm moving it to the middle here. So typically I will do anywhere from 3 to 4 screws. So it kind of depends. You just wanna check your kind of gap in between the two, and you kind of just put them as needed, as long as you have good places where they're gonna be concealed. So I'm clamping this together and pushing this one back and making sure that these are nice and flush. All right, another important thing to know when you're ganging these together, you really want to do from top to bottom or bottom to top. You don't want to do top, then bottom, then middle. If there's any variation on this, you really want to be able to kind of pull back and forth as you go. So we've got the front all ganged together. Okay, after you do that, next thing you want to do is make sure you get the back ganged together as well. So we got a screw at the top and bottom, that's really all you need. In this case, you can see that the way that these boxes are, we don't have like a separate face frame. So this case, the sides butt right up to each other. So we're able to just screw all around the front and all along the back. But you might have face frames. In that case, you know, you'll have your face frame, right? And then you'll have your other face frame that comes together, and those face frames overhang that's your box there. So you have this gap right in here, okay? So it's fine in the front because you're gonna screw the face frames together, but in the back, you're gonna screw the boxes together. So that gap, you'll want to take this measurement here, and then you want to add that shim in the back here, whatever size that is, and then you can screw all those together and it won't pinch the box together. So that's how you do those. Okay, so then after that, normally I would just screw this right to the wall, but this wall is just a little bit funky, so what we're gonna do is get this next cabinet in here, and we're gonna gang those together, and then we're gonna kind of play with this wall a little bit, and basically we'll be able to move this all as one unit, and then we'll fasten them to the wall together afterwards. So I've got everything marked out on here. So now when we drill this hole, what we're gonna do is we're gonna drill from the back side just through this, okay? If we drill the whole thing through the back side on all these, what we're gonna do is it's just gonna like pop on the face, which is our good side. We want that to look clean. So we're basically gonna do the pilot hole for each one of these, and then we'll come through from the other side and finish it off. All right, guys, that's all I got for you. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments below. We'll do our best to answer them, and we'll see you on the next one.